And Claudia, interestingly, started her career as an art historian. Correct me if I'm wrong. She has had a very interesting career working with garden history and historical plant collections, lives in Vienna, and works as a scientific officer at the Austrian Horticultural Society and the Austrian Federal Gardens. And together with her colleagues of these two organizations, she is responsible for the Vienna Citrus Days. And she's been involved in this really important topic for over 30 years, which really means that in Austria, at least, orangeries are taken very seriously. So, Claudia, perhaps you could tell us exactly why you think that is.
Well, I think you will hear it in my presentation. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will speak about some examples for research and maintenance of citrus collections in the last decades, and about the Vienna Citrus Days as an example for so important publicity work for this topic. So, it sticks again.
This is a common problem, isn't it, with the slideshow? When it's all ready, it seems to stick. So the way I cured it was to stop screen sharing. And
now
there we go.
It works.
Perfect.
Okay, here we go.
It's woken up.
So, since the first evidence of orange trees in the royal gardens of Ferdinand I of Habsburg at the Prague Castle in 1538, citrus culture has been an important element of aristocratic courts and wealthy bourgeois palaces north of the Alps. The popularity of citrus plants from the 16th to the 18th centuries resulted in the development of cultivating methods, garden tools, hibernating buildings, as you see a couple of on the photos, and professional specialization in the field. But citrus plants were also used in courtly representation as a symbol for everlasting rain in virtuous sovereign. This leads too far. This would be a presentation on his own. In almost every residence in Germany and Austria, even in the smallest ones, but also in almost all the other European countries north of the Alps, citrus plant collections were created and orangeries were built. For about 250 years, citrus plants were among the most important and most precious plants. A decline in citrus plant collections, as well as the deterioration of hibernation buildings, started in the late 18th century. Many new exotic plants were brought to Central Europe. In Austria, for example, the emperor sent gardeners and scientists abroad to collect tropical plants and animals. In England, the Horticultural Society authorized plant hunters to find in Europe unknown plant species. Thus, large numbers of tropical plants arrived in the hotspots of botanical research, such as London, Paris, or Vienna. New buildings had to be built to cultivate these tropical plants under the harsh northern climatic conditions. In many gardens, glass houses were built, where the tropical plants were cultivated throughout the year. As a result, interest in citrus plants declined. Moreover, citrus collections had lost their iconographical significance as a symbol for everlasting rain and the renaissance of antique traditions. However, even though the focus had changed towards tropical plants and the new technique of glasshouses, citrus plant collections were still maintained in existing buildings. And in the 19th century, a few new oranges were built, like the Orangery Palace at Sanssouci, Potsdam. During the 20th century, depending on the political and economic situation, Some orangeries in Germany and Austria experienced a decline, but others increased interest. With the abolition of monarchies after World War I, most of the citrus plant collections perished, but a few survive, some of which exist to the present. There are many reasons for the loss of citrus collections in the 20th century, and two examples shall be mentioned here. The major part of the outstanding collection of citrus and Mediterranean plants at Sanssouci, Potsdam, survive even the difficult times of the global economic crisis in 1929 and World War II. However, in 1946, the Russian occupying power removed to an unknown location in the USSR the biggest and most beautiful plants as trophies. Only a few deceased and weak plants remained in the orangery at Sanssouci, as you see on the slide. Faults in the cultivation of citrus also caused the loss of collections. An example is the collection at Oranienbaum near Dessau in Saxony-Anhalt. You see the building and a part of the collection on the slide. The plant collection at Oranienbaum existed until one spring night in 1961, when a frost destroyed all the plants, which had already been placed in the garden. Only a few citrus trees, which incidentally had remained in the orangery building, survived. Aging, vandalism, and the lack of experience caused the loss of further plants, so that in 1990 only 9 trees remained. Fortunately, a few collections survived the centuries up until today, like that at Schönbrunn in Vienna. The first evidence of orange trees in Vienna dates from 1542. The trees were cultivated in the Hofburg Gardens situated in the city center. A few sources provide information about the following decades. In an inventory of 1639, 97 big and small orange trees were listed. At Schönbrunn, at that time, the widow's seat for Eleonora Gonzaga, which later became the imperial summer castle, orange trees were first mentioned in 1647. During the second siege of Vienna by Turkish warriors in 1683, parts of the gardens of Schönbrunn were destroyed, including the citrus collection. A few years later, reconstruction of the gardens and the plant collections started. In 1805, archive sources mention more than 1,500 citrus trees in the orangery. The gardeners were conscious of the extraordinary value of the collection. They always continued to care of the plants and saved the collections, sometimes even by disregarding imperial commands. Again, in 1918, after the abolition of the monarchy, deputies of the Provisional National Assembly requested the closure of the collection for budgetary reasons, which was not carried out. For centuries, one can observe a cyclical up and down. The Schönbrunn citrus collection was repeatedly threatened by wars, budget cuts, lack of interest, and maintenance errors. Despite these threats, the collection currently consists of about 500 trees from 100 different varieties, and the major part are historical. However, the Schönbrunn collection is rather the exception. In many historical gardens, the orangery buildings have remained empty, were used for other purposes, as Kate just mentioned, then plant hibernation or simply deteriorated. In 1979, due to concern about the decline of the orangery culture, Harry Günther, you see him here on the photo, the director of the Prussian Gardens in Potsdam, at that time GDR, called on gardeners to preserve the knowledge about the cultivation of citrus plants to save still existing collections and to build up new ones. For this purpose, the Arbeitskreis Orangerien, AKO, was founded in the former GDR. On a side note, it may appear ironic that a working group on a rather vital topic was established in a socialist state. Within a very short time, it turned out that the project encompassed matters other than the plans. Other issues had to be taken into consideration, such as function and technique, as well as the architectural decoration of hibernation buildings, heating systems, historical literature about the cultivation of citrus plants, citrus gardeners' tools, plant pots, mythology and political iconology of citrus, or the crosstalk between citrus and visual arts, music and literature. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the GDR, colleagues from West Germany joined the renowned Arbeitskreis Orangery. Today, AKO includes members not only in the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, but also in Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Italy. And most of the speakers of the Today webinar are members. Meanwhile, the large number of professions as gardeners, landscape architects, art historians, botanists, archaeologists, technicians, lawyers, and others reflects the complexity of the task. The issues of orangeries is also at the interface of conservation of historical monuments and historical gardens. The function of the buildings is to protect the plants, and without plants, the buildings have basically lost their initial purpose. In parallel with research and conservation of hibernation buildings, it was important to regain knowledge about cultivation of citrus plants in northern climates. The historical literature from the 16th century onwards is an important source to re-establish and to maintain citrus plant collections today. Since 1998, several citrus cultivation workshops were also organized to train orangery gardeners by AKO. As a result, in many historical gardens, existing citrus plant collections have been enlarged and are in better conditions today. In recent years, many projects have been started to reintroduce citrus plants in historical gardens or to supplement existing collections. Although in well-known and widespread citrus monographies such as Ferrari, Volkhammer, and Rousseau, the number of species and varieties is very high, we know little about different species and varieties in citrus plant collections. Usually in garden inventories, only the species are listed, but not the varieties. Only a few exceptions are known. For example, the plant catalogue of Wroclaw Bourgeois, Caspar Wilhelm Scultetus, in 1731. This catalogue represents a list of 162 different species of citrus plants divided in 3 groups. 35 citronate, in English term is citrons, 85 citronien, lumien, and limonien, these are all lemons, and 42 Pomeranzen, the old German word for bitter oranges. Apart from the above-mentioned exception, most archival documents mention Orangen or Pomeranzen only. This leads to the phenomenon that in most of the historical gardens, despite a presumably much larger number of species and varieties, the reintroduction of citrus plants is restricted to Citrus aurantium. 2 examples among the historical gardens in which citrus plant collections have been rebuilt in recent years will be mentioned. At Schloss Seehof, near Bamberg, Bavaria, a property of the Prince Bishops of Schönbrunn and Seinsheim, the first orangery buildings date back to about 1730. It is, I marked it with a red circle, the 2 orangery buildings. The orangery buildings still exist, but the orangery parterre as well as the plants, and you see the orangery parterre here. So these are the orangery buildings, this was the parterre, and this is the still existing castle. The orangery parterre, as well as the plants, were lost in the course of the secularization in 1803. A part of the collection remained until an auction in 1830. In the 1990s, the orangery buildings were restored and plans were made to rebuild the parterre and the citrus collection. On the occasion of the ICOMOS Congress, Orangeries in Europe in 2005, 28 citrus plants were placed on the surface of the former orangery parterre. You see it on the photo on the left side. Archive research, as well as the archaeological excavations, served as basis for the reconstruction. Finally, in 2006, 90 citrus aurantium were bought, and again in 2010, 50 citrus sinensis, so sweet oranges. You see some of them on the photo on the right side. After many years of intensive research, the orangery parterre has been restored and reopened on the occasion of the Bavarian State Horticultural Show in Bamberg in 2012. The Saxonian gardens of Dresden, Großsedlitz, and Pillnitz as well are examples of outstanding citrus and orangery culture. In April 2012, the public was informed by the director of the palaces, castles, and gardens in Saxony that orange trees will blossom again in the courtyard of the Zwinger in Dresden. Today, the Zwinger is well known as a museum complex near the palace and the opera, even though the building was constructed for the hibernation of citrus plants originally. In Dresden, citrus plants have been cultivated at least since 1575, when 4 citrus aurantium were sent by Emperor Maximilian II as a special gift for Elector August of Saxony from Vienna to Dresden. During the reign of Elector August the Strong, the orangery buildings and the collection of citrus plants obtained an exceptional importance as insignia of permanent sovereignty and as a sign of political efforts. In 1709, August the Strong and his architect Matthäus Daniel Pöppelmann started to build the Zwinger in Dresden, and you see it on the etching on the left side. Already in 1728, the oranges had to hibernate in the nearby Herzogin Garden because the buildings of the Zwinger was used for other purposes. The plants still remained in the Zwinger courtyard during summer. And you see the situation and the etching on the right side. In 1731, 1 year after August's death, 1,159 citrus aurantium were listed in an inventory of the Herzogin Garden at Dresden. Political changes after the 7 Years' War and the loss of interest in the orange plants caused a rapid reduction of plants. Finally, in 1879, the last orange trees left the Zwinger. And the Zwinger was empty for a very long time, as you see it on the photo on the bottom right side. Fortunately, at Pillnitz, 6 citrus aurantium of the original Zwinger oranges still exist today. These between 250 and 300-year-old trees are among the oldest citrus aurantium which are being cultivated in tubs north of the Alps. Due to the use of Zwinger for museum purposes, the situation of the 18th century cannot be restored. Hence, the conservators decided to have a smaller number of orange trees in the Zwinger courtyard to revitalize the original purpose and to reflect the original use of the building complex. In 2013, 82 citrus aurantium were bought in an Italian nursery. For acclimatization reasons and to design the desired canopy, they were cultivated during a couple of years at Großsedlitz. Since 2017, these orange trees are displayed in the Zwinger courtyard during the summer. Also, in many other orangeries, gardeners tried to re-establish the collections. From the late 1990s, in many orangeries, the focus was on research about the collections and the restoration of the orangery buildings, as well as the parterres where the plants are displayed during summer. Similarly, as in former centuries, networking and exchange between gardeners becomes more and more important. The hunt for rare historical varieties and their cultivation is also a duty of garden conservation. Garden conservation includes also the enhancement of the awareness in the public. Today, oranges, lemons, and other citrus fruits are offered year-round in every supermarket at low prices. However, most people cannot imagine the value and the importance of citrus plants in former centuries, and especially their value for European emperors, nobility, and rich bourgeois. Orangery culture is a part of our heritage. People also don't know about the incredible variety of historical species. For these reasons, the administrations of many historical gardens aim at informing the visitors about citrus culture in various ways. At Schönbrunn, a special event was established more than 20 years ago. In 2000, the Austrian Horticultural Society and the Austrian Federal Garden Administration organized the first Vienna Citrus Days in the Orangery building at Schönbrunn to present the citrus collection and to provide an opportunity to buy rare citrus plants. Starting with a small exhibition of the citrus plant collection at Schönbrunn, together with a limited number of nurseries, a bookshop, and a lot of homemade lemonade, this event has constantly expanded. Since 2008, it has been supplemented by alternating exhibitions with different focuses, such as historical techniques, citrus and fine arts, historical varieties, the diverse use of citrus fruits, parentage of citrus species, and many more. Also, a broad selection of guided tours, workshops, and lectures is offered. In addition, culinary aspects have become more and more important in recent years. Since more than 10 years, we offer special tastings of raw citrus fruits. A couple of years ago, we started to eat the whole fruits of different historic species. Because we had read Volckermann's descriptions of taste, and we were just curious about it. And at the end, we were so astonished about the immense difference of taste. And then we thought it would be interesting for the visitors of the Citrus Days to get this rare opportunity, because in supermarkets, you can't buy the fruits of these special historic species. First, we organized it on our own. As every year the rush got bigger and bigger, we decided to run it in a more professional way. Now, a cook and food blogger and a sensor specialist perform the tasting with big success, as you can see on the pictures. After more than 20 years, the Vienna Citrus Days is a well-established event. Nurseries' requests for participation have grown, and the organization team notices an increasing interest in the event and an ever larger knowledge about citrus culture. The workload for the event is immense, but we understand it as our duty to arouse interest for this wonderful and important topic. Even though citrus plants are a great luxury, not only in times of limited finances, politicians and responsible persons who understand today that citrus cultivation in historical gardens is a historical legacy and has to be supported. And as you can see on the photo, citrus cultivation is also a lot of fun. Thank you for listening.